Welcome to the Millionaires mini-series with your hosts Stephanie Keith and Stacey Failing, here to set you up with the most luxurious version of yourself. This podcast is filled with wealthy women vibes and a sneak peek into the millionaire's lifestyle. Whether your inner millionaire's dreams of taking private jets to deserted islands or you prefer the lighter side of luxury, we have an opportunity for you that is priceless.
Come join us as we share with you all of our juicy money secrets, mindset hacks, and so much more. Money may not buy happiness, but it can provide you with an abundant life beyond your wildest dreams. So turn up the volume, adjust your crown, and get ready to embrace your inner millionaire-ass. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the podcast. Steph and I are working on something really exciting. And the next few weeks, we're going to be digging into a little insight, giving you a sneak peek of kind of what to expect that you will have the opportunity to jump on around Black Friday. And so we've got some guests lined up. And today we have an amazing guest. Aiesha is here with us to share her experience with manifesting and really truly feeling aligned with who she is, what it is that she wanted to create. And now she has put her podcast out in the world, and it's kind of still new and fresh. And so she's embracing the excitement and all the things that come along with that. So welcome, Aiesha. And do you want to expand on that a little bit and tell the audience who you are a little bit more?
Thank you. That was a great introduction. Yes. I'm Aiesha. Hi. Nice to meet you all. And yes, my journey started about 2 years ago, where I became a neurolinguistic programming coach. And actually the company that I worked for, I used this within my leadership role and found myself coaching people throughout those 2 years. I recently also became a motivational mapper, so I can understand motivations from your value sets, and also a public speaker. And just recently a podcaster.
Yay. Yeah. Tell us about that, because I know you and I have been talking a little bit before. You were actually doing the work for your podcast, and like, what was your mindset before? And then like, what kind of changed for you to actually take that action to get your podcast out in the world?
Yes, it's one of those things, isn't it? You help coach other people, but you actually don't help yourself in the meantime. And for the longest of periods of time, I was like, oh, I really want to, take this further. I really enjoyed coaching others and helping them shift some limiting beliefs. But in my reality was I had limiting beliefs, and I had been wanting to set up a podcast for the best part of 5 years. However, my mindset was like, oh my goodness, who's going to listen to me? What will people actually want to like hear what I've got to say? And, is it worth putting out to the world? And, I decided that you and I, we had like a call, and, we talked a lot about that, and just that actually, people go through this all the time. And I was like, yeah, this is so true. How many people I've coached, and this very thing that holds them back, that they want to, go and engage in and just really, go and do their dreams. And I'm struggling right now. I'm like, how did I get to this place? But it was definitely a case of just going back a few steps and gaining that self-belief in myself. Yeah.
Yeah, you are.
I think that's such an important point to bring up, that everyone experiences this, because you're so well spoken and you've had experience in your career in teaching these things, but it's just different when you're putting yourself out there to the world, to this open audience. And I think it's so important that you're sharing that, because when people are going through it, I think that they just assume it's only them that feels that. And everyone else is so good at this, but it's just me, like, I'm not good enough. And I know that was the case when I wanted to start a podcast. It took me 2 years to do it. And it was actually hearing a fellow podcaster, someone that I really liked. And I thought, oh my gosh, she's so amazing. And she was doing a podcast on how her first few podcasts were in her car with her iPhone. And I was like, okay, I can do this, because she did that and she's great. And so maybe I don't need all of the things. And maybe it is okay that it's just me and I'm just learning and figuring it out. So I'm glad that you shared that, because I think it then gives permission to other people that, okay, everyone goes through this, but we can work through it.
Absolutely. And that's the thing. You just got to be able to have that self-awareness around being able to just catch it. Because I think a lot of the time we're so heavily bundled with this has happened and that's happened, and we lose our self-awareness. And you just need to take those few minutes to just step back and go, right, okay, why am I feeling this way? Like, what's happening and where's it coming from? And I realized I had my own limiting beliefs, and there I am trying to help others, and I can't even help myself. I was like, what's happening here? And the self-awareness around that. Yeah, it's really important, I think, for every human being to grow that self-awareness, for sure.
Yeah, this is something we hear all the time in this space, and we all go through it. We all have those limiting beliefs. And so it's just really important that you are bringing awareness not only to your own limiting beliefs, but just recognizing that this is something that is normal. And especially when you're doing something scary and unknown and you've never done this before, and, you're putting yourself out there. But we had that conversation. We were just talking about what amazing gifts that you had, and you just felt like so confident in your abilities. And you're like, yes, I am meant for this. I have this like vision. I have this thing that I want to create, and it's there. It's just, what do I do? What is like the first step? And you actually took the step in taking the podcast course. So can you tell everybody a little bit about that? Like, what made you decide to take the course and how it helped you really go from this idea that you've had stewing inside for like the last 5 years to actually now having a podcast?
Yes. Sometimes I was talking about this with my husband yesterday, actually. We're not equipped with all the knowledge in the world. And I think internally we just want to be the expert at everything. And, and I think that's sometimes what holds us back. It's like, oh, we're not the expert. And we end up procrastinating because we're not the expert. And then we don't know how to become an expert. I was listening to one of your podcasts, Stacey, and I can't even remember which podcast it was, because I listen to them regularly. And you advertised how you were going to help women or people or whoever wanted to do a podcast. You're putting out this course. And I was like, oh my goodness, I know I want to put a podcast out. I have no idea how to do this. So I'm going to take advantage of this. And I think I even emailed you, like a month before it happened. And then I think I was like, oh, it's not starting yet. Oh my goodness. That was good fun in that moment. And, but I took the podcast, and it was so informative, and it helped me in each step of the way. What held me back was my own limiting beliefs, like how I thought about myself. And actually, it's in those moments of uncomfortableness that you grow. And I took that leap of faith, and I was like, do you know what? Because the amount of times I was going to email you and say, I don't think I'm good enough, and in the end, I was like, do you know, we really need to have a call. Let's do this. And interestingly, my journey was, I would like to think, because, we're all unique. My journey was an interesting one. I got the podcast course. It started. I missed everything. And I think I did like the first Monday that came out, and then we actually had a fire in our house. So it meant that I used that as like my reasoning for why I shouldn't follow on with this podcast. And then it was, I figured out, oh, this is me holding myself back. We had the call, and I think I messaged you and was like, I'm going to do this in a week. And within a week, I picked it up on the Monday. By Friday, I had done every single module. And it was so super easy, so quick to learn. I had like your screen open, my screen's open on my laptop. I was like doing it side by side, like, oh yeah, that's how we do this. And I must admit, I wouldn't be here at this space without that call with you and being self-aware around how I feel about myself, and two, with the podcast course. Yeah, it was very helpful. And on top of that, you give so much support, which, when you have got someone who is so desperately wanting to, help the world, but just needs that little ignition, because the fire is there. You were so great being that ignition for me, for sure.
I appreciate that. And I'm so glad that you did it. You put everything aside and you were able to make it happen. And I think that is just amazing, because we were messaging back and forth, and I can feel your passion from the very beginning. And you bring up a good point too, in that we don't have to do this alone. And Steph, I know that you can vouch for this on what you do too, and on our mastermind together, and the power of having other people that are going through something similar, and that accountability piece, because we do get in our head when we're going through that change and we're doing all the work and we second guess what we're doing. And sometimes it's just what we need is somebody to help us kind of rearrange our thoughts and get us out of our own head so that we can start to create that momentum for ourselves. Steph, do you have anything to add on that?
Yeah, I just think that, it is the accountability, but really the support. Because I know I went through that, where I was like, I wish someone could just tap me on the shoulder and be like, you need to start a podcast and because I think we're so conditioned to be in that mindset with the way things are set up with, you go and interview and you get a job and you get picked, you get selected, you get hired. And in the business world and in podcasting, no one's going to come and pick you. Like, you have to pick yourself. Oh, yeah. But to your point, when you're in a group where there's other people going through it, and where there is a coach that does want to help you bring your gifts to the world, it's easier because you have that support. You have that team, and not that they need to pick you, but they're cheering you on. And it just gives you that little bit of confidence and validation that we all need. And really everyone. I mean, I have seen people that are incredibly successful and wealthy, and you would think they have all the confidence in the world, yet they're terrified to do a podcast and put their voice out there and be vulnerable and share their story with the world. So it really is something, we all go through, and you have that support. And not only that, but I mean, you can vouch for this more than me. It's fun. It's so much more fun when you have a group that is going through it with you versus doing it all by yourself, because that can be very lonely. I know from personal experience.
I can actually vouch for that. So I quit my job back in, was it July 31st was my last date, and going from a job to an employee to an entrepreneur, there is such a gap in that you do need to have that group, that because you are choosing yourself, and for sure you're choosing yourself, and you are your own champion, and you need that support network that surrounds you, that says, hey, I champion you too. And if you're having a bad day, that's okay too. And I think that was a lot of what Stacey did for me, was even when I was like, oh my gosh, I'm just terrible, excuse my language, but I am shit at this thing. And what am I doing? And I really toyed with the idea of going back and getting a job. But then Stacey was like, just keep going. I was like, is it that simple? And then as soon as I realized it was that simple, I was like, okay, let's do this. Let's go ahead. And it was full steam ahead from that moment onwards. And now I have 7 guest speakers lined up to speak with me over the next few weeks, which is just awesome. Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Tell us a little bit more about your podcast. I want to know, what's the name of it, and what kinds of things are you going to be teaching, and what types of guests are you going to have?
So the podcast is called Embrace Your Glow. And the reason why I called it Embrace Your Glow is just, I think we look so outside of ourselves for validation, in terms of am I good enough? And so we go and do something that makes us feel good enough, but it's just never quite enough. And we end up going back to the same questions over and over again, when really we should be introspectively looking and just understanding ourselves. And I really just feel that people, when you ask them questions of, oh, so what makes you tick? Or, what led you down that path? People really don't have any sort of idea, or they just normally, I've found with when I've been coaching others, it's always been, well, I just stumbled on it, or yeah, it sounded like a great idea, so I just went with it. And I just thought, why not bring something to the world that helps them look introspectively and helps them grow their self-worth and understand that transformations and transitions are part and parcel, and that we shouldn't let them drag us down. Because, and I certainly did. And I can be a beacon for that for others, and that I have let transitions and transformations, oh my gosh, these are too big and scary. And, I'm feeling super uncomfortable, and I just want people to get comfortable with being uncomfortable. And so the podcast has got a range of people who are going to guest on there, teaching from how to transition and why they're so good for you, to why a coach is amazing. Because, we go through life, and like you said, sometimes we just don't have anyone to hold our hand through it, even if it's a virtual one. So I want to have like a show that gives everyone a virtual hug and holds everyone's hand virtually. Yeah. And just become friends with everybody.
I love that.
Great way to grow a group of women. And I talked to Aiesha, and I talked to my other clients too, and just saying like, we're starting this movement of where we don't have to stay in this conditioned mindset, and we can really champion and grow the mindset of all of the women out there who are wanting and eager and know that there's something more, and that we don't have to look outwards like we've done our entire life. And to have women like you to be that light and to give your experience and say, I've done this. This is real for me. I know how you're feeling. Let's walk you through this and get you to that place where you can embrace your glow and confidently wear that and not have to worry about what anybody else is saying, and just be you and love that person. And I love that you said it doesn't have to be hard. It can be just this simple. And it is just this simple. And when you help other women recognize their own glow, it becomes simple. Their ideas and the things that they want to create and the things that they want to do and become are simple. And we just overcomplicate everything. So I love what you're doing in this movement that you're creating.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah. Without listening to podcasts and hearing other women going through the things that I wanted to do, I never would have been able to leave my job, start a podcast, do anything. I would have been paralyzed with fear. But I think it was hearing these other stories and just seeing that other women could do it, that it gave me that little bit of push, like I could do this too. So I think it's so important that you're out there and you're sharing it and talking about a lot of those things that are difficult, and it's not always perfect and easy, but that's why, you need a coach and need support, and there's people out there that are willing to help you and like lend you a hand. And so I think that's amazing work. And I think it's going to really help motivate other women to follow their dreams and their passions instead of just being stuck in something that's not fulfilling.
Absolutely. I totally agree with that, and I think sitting in a situation where I was very unfulfilled, but also just going with the motions, because, life does, you tend to either let life rule you, or you can rule life. And I was definitely in the position that I was in, was letting life rule me, and forgot that I had that control. And you're so right, because it was podcasts. I started listening to lots of different podcasts, and just thinking, oh my goodness, I can take back this control. I have that. And I teach others to do that. So I'm going to give myself the biggest gift and do my thing.
You're doing your thing, and you don't have to be the expert in that space. And I think that's one of the things that a lot of people have a misunderstanding about is I can't start a podcast. I can't become a coach. I can't do this or that because I don't have all the certifications. Who am I to come on here and have a conversation and act like I know everything? And when you have a podcast and you're just sharing your experience and like what it is that you know and what has helped you along the way, it's not coming from an expert point of view. It's coming from a real life perspective, and people want that. And I know you and I have talked, and this is what your podcast is doing. You're like, I don't have it all figured out. I'm just showing up and sharing what I do know and hoping that it helps at least one person on the other side.
Absolutely. And I think just being brave, because honestly, like even today on this call, this is like my first ever interview on a podcast, and I challenge myself every day to go outside of my comfort zone, because I know I'll learn something from that, and then something about me. And that's what my podcast talks about, is challenging yourself every single day, even when you don't want to, and you just feel like you want to hide under the blankets. And I've been there for sure. You just want to hide under those blankets and let the world pass you by. And, but yeah, you can stand up and say, no, I want this. This is my dream and I'm going to go for it. Yeah.
I think that's a great place to leave everybody, and to have them just kind of be in their head a little bit and think about what you just said, because I think that's a great way to put it. And if people want to, you already said the name of your podcast, but just for the listeners, in case they missed it, tell us again what the name is and where they can find you, and if they can connect with you in other places, like on social media.
Absolutely. I'm heavily on Instagram. So follow me at Aiesha Attryde Weste with an E at the end. And my podcast is Embrace Your Glow. It'll be releasing in January. And yeah, I'm on Facebook under Aiesha Attryde Weste. And yeah, I look forward to your questions and yeah, listening to the show.
We're excited.
It was so nice chatting with you. Thank you so much for coming on.
No, thank you. It's nice chatting to you too.
All right. Really, everything will be in the show notes for everybody. So if they want to connect with you and follow your podcast in January, they have everything they need.
Perfect. Thank you so much, everyone.